Money and input cruising through the airwaves. Transformers knowledge blast that never caves. Reviews so sharp they'll cut through steel. In the podcast world, they're the real deal. Jumping in the deep end, swimming with the best. Danny's got the info and she never needs to rest. Input's got the passion like a roaring jet. Together they make a mark you won't forget. Dynamic duo, never gonna quit. Taking over airwaves, super lit. Transformers podcast bringing the heat. Every single episode can't be beat.
Hey, welcome to the State of the Transformers Fandom Podcast. Did I get it right for once?
I think you did. Yeah, you got it right for the first time and the last time, you know. So,
Hey, Brick Builder. Hey, Mama. What's up, everybody?
So, hey, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the State of the Transformers Fandom Podcast. And like all good things, everything must come to an end. And this is the final episode of the State of the Transformers Fandom Podcast. But don't fret. Oh, no, because it is spooky season. I may have scared you a little bit into thinking that me and Danny are calling it quits, that we're tapped out. Oh, that we're Bret Hart at Montreal. And no, we are not. We're not calling it quits. No, the State of the Transformers Fandom Podcast is giving birth to the State of Us podcast starting next week. We basically kind of talked this over, and we feel like between the two of us, we've been kind of talking Transformers and stuff like that for the last, I guess 5 years now, give or take.
Half a decade, yeah.
And kind of ran, I guess, lack of a better phrasing here, kind of ran the Transformers thing into the ground because it's the same thing. It's another Soundwave, it's another Megatron, it's another this, it's another that. So yeah. Until something big kind of pops off, the State of the Transformers Fandom Podcast will still be around, still be in the background. But until something major pops off, like, Hasbro does like a HasLab or something, like that kind of catches our eye that we can kind of sink our teeth into.
Big stuff in the fandom. We'll rewind it, bring it back. It might be once a month, might not happen a month, but we'll still be streaming on Tuesdays. But with the State of Us podcast.
So, what's the State of Us podcast? This is going to be us, man. We're just going to be talking. We're just going to be chilling. We're going to talk about pretty much, I don't want to say everything, anything, and everything in between, but it's just going to be a more kind of laid back, kind of chill type of thing where we just kind of talk about whatever.
Yeah, shit we watch, movies, slice of life, old movie stuff, new stuff, any toy, something that catches our eye, we can just throw it into the thing, let's bring this up, we'll bring that up, and just more of a slice of life, kind of just us relaxed on the air, and we want to be able to talk about more stuff than just another Soundwave, so.
Right, like the Blue Jays and how they suck. So, I mean, other than that, that's so that's what we're doing. So, like I said, so think of this podcast as secondary going forward. And something big pops off, then we'll talk about it. Hey, Rachel, how's it going?
How's it going?
Your comment leads right into our topic of the State of Transformers Fandom Podcast. What's today's topic, Danny? What are we talking about?
Yeah, we're just why do some toy lines become timeless while others fade away, just like this podcast? No. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing, kind of a good thing to leave it on, nostalgia bit. Some toy lines, they just become more timeless than others. Some things you thought that were going to be timeless don't, like I see a lot of people that jumped on the early Spawn figures. Yeah, some hold their value, some are still cool, but stuff like that, like those ones, like people really thought those were gonna, because they're different at the time, really stick around. And now you can find a lot of those figures in like $5 bins and all that, right? And then even the Toy Biz stuff has come around. For a long time it was worth like Not a lot. It's not about the worth, but like even people didn't touch on it or like it, but it's cool, man. Like I'm getting one of the original Toy Biz lizards in package sealed. They just have some of those lines just have like more of a nostalgia. That's why the Marvel Legends retro line is doing the Spider-Man line. There's that new Mysterio coming out. That's like the cartoon colors. There's just some nostalgic vibes to that toy line as well. Some lines just really hold. And sometimes you thought that wouldn't do hold and over time, and some just fade away, right?
Well, Rachel kind of hit on something real quick, and I'll touch on what you're saying here, but she talked about the Labubu and how it's like gimmicky junk and stuff. Oracle bought a Lafufu, which is like, I guess that people use for knockoffs or whatever.
We're talking about that.
She got it for like $5 or $10, whatever it was at this flea market. The thing is what kills me is like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad figurine. I'm talking about like her knockoff. Like it's pretty well made. But if you squeeze it, it fucking sings. And the regular Labubus don't do that. And I was like, the Labubus, like fucking people out there going to spend 60 to 100 to whatever crazy stupid amount of money for this thing.
Hundreds, yeah.
And it doesn't do anything. And meanwhile, she gets one for $10 from the flea market that's just as good of quality, and it sings when you squeeze it. Like
that reminds me of something else I squeezed. Yeah, but yeah, yeah, that's cool. I know me and Martin were talking about it on the show we were doing, but the boo-boos, and someone thought they had fakes, but they weren't. It's just too much, makes me feel old. I know. I don't know. You emailed me, Anthony. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Oh, collaborations for what? Like, I don't get it, but I saw the thing. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I know you said you could help me do it, but I'm lost, man.
I got the email too. I think it's like a like anything that we've done on his channel, we can now share. Like when we're doing like the top 10 countdowns or the top whatever, we're grading like the Siege figures and stuff like that. And so
that's another line Rachel touched on too. What freaks me out is that gross out stuff. Like the 90, I can't believe that so many people love Mad Balls to this day. They're paying thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars for Mad Balls. It's crazy. To me, that's crazy that some of those lines stuck around,
Yeah, I see something like Stretch Armstrong now making a resurgence.
Oh, for sure. Remember the red guy and all those guys? I had those guys. Those are sick.
Yeah, was it Vac Man, right?
Yeah. Hell
yeah, I had a bunch. I had a Vac Man. I could never find Stretch Armstrong as a kid, but
no.
I thought that would be something that would that really like would last in terms of like popularity and stuff, like maybe like the box figures and stuff would last. I didn't think anything outside of a package would last because of what the gimmick is. I thought, it would deteriorate over time. It wouldn't be around. But like really good sealed examples would be around and still be popular. But same thing with Skeleton Warriors. I was like, man, this fucking cartoon, this thing's dope.
Skeleton Warriors are worth a fortune now, though. Oh no, it's Skeleton Warriors. I'm thinking different line. I'm thinking of like the Sticks figures, those weird things. Not Skeleton Warriors. Yeah, Skeleton Warriors are dirt cheap-ish still.
Yeah. And then like there's like different like Prince Lightstar is like 4 or 5 different versions with different swords and colored swords and stuff, and like different chase versions. And I thought that would be like the one that had the orange sword, I figured would be dirt cheap, but like the ones like the blue and the green sword and stuff, I figured like those would be pretty expensive. And that didn't really happen, obviously. But I think something else to touch on here is like, toy lines that keep going, right? That kind of ran themselves in the ground as well, right?
Some always get a fresh start. That kind of like Turtles, like everyone loves the originals. They do them. They have so many forms they can take, and Ultimates they were doing so good at the beginning, and then they had all the issues with like, oh, they're too close to Playmates, and then the value on those dropped, even the collectability. Some of those ones from Super 7, when you open them, were so badly made, loose legs, right? But Turtles, like, they always can evolve. The new ones for the movie were kind of cool. They had some pretty cool designs. I never liked the new show, but just some of the designs and the way they packaged the figures was cool, you know. But I love the 2003 Turtles, like the originals, how they were packaged, and those, yeah, they stand out to me. And, you know, it's just some lines can evolve over so many eras and stay fresh, but some do become stagnant, and just it depends on the reach, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, the idea of like nostalgia and stuff, a lot of these companies kind of nostalgia baiting and stuff, because like you touched on Super 7, and I think
But yeah,
I think there was a lot of hype for those like toy accurate Ninja Turtles that they were doing, I guess would be a good way to say that. And then like everybody loved the Raphael when he came out, but then it's just like, you know, like there was a lot of
dude,
people.
they were made so bad, some of them.
Yeah.
Rachel's right though. Black Series is, besides clones, like I'll still pick up the odd clone. I love Shore Troopers, but besides clones, I sold every Star Wars figure. I know people are like, hold on to your Luke and this. No, I got rid of all of them. Even some of all the bounty hunters. Maybe kept one Boba Fett, but like I got rid of like almost everything, because I was just that line was just freaking like, oh my god. Even the quality of the figures were weird, but like I said, I don't mind some of my clones, so I kept a lot of my Shore Troopers and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just Black Series, so much of an easy pass. I'm barely picking that up anymore, you know.
Well, and the problem with Black Series is like, you know, say what you will about the Star Wars fandom, but like the fans of the original movies, I should say what Disney calls like the legacy, the legacy stories. So like the first 3 movies, Shadows of the Empire, you know, the original books, stuff like that. You know, you can only do Jedi Master Luke Skywalker so often.
I know.
You know, you can only do Bespin Luke so often. You can only do Vader so often before, you know, oh, the robe is outside of his breathing apparatus. Well, this one's inside. You know, it's like, okay, like, good God, okay. But they started to really kind of focus on the Disney aspect of Star Wars, which was a terrible idea. They really should. When they started focusing on, we're starting to see Dash Rendar and Shadows of the Empire figures are starting to just now break through, and those characters should have been, you know, in Black Series a long time ago. And what they ended up doing is that they focused on the Disney stuff, and I will say rightfully so. They rightfully focused on the Disney movies because those were the movies that were coming out. Okay. But when those movies really weren't doing gangbusters, Hasbro's been in this business long enough to say, okay, we're only going to do the villain from this new movie, and we're going to do like 1 or 2 main characters, but we need to focus on something else to keep that series there, or keep that brand, like the Black Series, afloat. So what they should have done is what they did with Marvel Legends, but kind of in reverse. When Marvel Legends, if you guys remember, Marvel Legends, the movie figures had its own toy line, and Marvel Legends was the comic book thing. And then they kind of merged the two into one. They should have done that, but in reverse with Black Series. They should have had, you know, your main characters, your main villain, and then like in like a line of like 6 or 7 in a way that had like 5 or 6 or 7 characters, and then start doing like the legacy characters, like I said, like Dash Rendar, and start doing you know, like Young Sung, you know, or I was gonna say like characters from like the Young Sung invasion from the books, and or Dark Empire Luke, right? Like it's another Luke, but now, you know, he's taking the place of Darth Vader in that storyline. Stuff like that. And then kind of after the movies phased out, you still would have had fans thirsty for the next wave. It wouldn't have been you know, the fan backlash the way that it was, you wouldn't have had 46 Rays just sitting on the shelf going unbought and damaging the
No,
brand.
that damaged it for Acolyte, all this shit. Like, I know people that, like, I go to GameStop every day, and they just said because of all that, they just stopped collecting it, period.
Right, right. And like Rachel said, the reason is because they got burnt on The Last Jedi. That stuff is still sitting in Ollie's. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like nobody at that point was listening to the fans, and they really should have been, you know.
Yeah.
The Last Jedi was just a terrible movie. It was filmed
It was
horribly.
damaging. Yeah, the whole thing was damaging, that trilogy.
Yeah. So I mean, like, you know, that first
Hey,
movie.
JJ.
Hey, JJ. That first movie was hope, you know, pun intended, right? Episode 7.
Yeah, I know.
Episode 7 was hope. And then episode 8 was kind of like
Horrible. Worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never even seen it.
yeah, and then I've never heard of anybody walking out of a Star Wars movie until Last Jedi.
I know. I'm
Like,
bad at that.
yeah. So at that point, like the writing's on the wall, and that's what. So that kind of goes what I was saying. Like with the contractual obligation and stuff that Hasbro had, they could have possibly renegotiated and been like, "Look, we're only going to do Rey from this movie. We'll do what the Darth Vader's grandson. I forget what his name is. And we'll do an Emperor Palpatine." And that'll be it. That'll be it for this wave. And then we'll do, you know, I know I'm harping on it, but like a Shadows of the Empire Luke, and we'll do a, you know, we'll do a Mara Jade, and we'll do whatever from these books, and we'll do, you know, we'll do like Han's kids, and we'll do this from the books, and we'll start really leaning into the legacy stuff, and then really lean into it to really bring that hype back into the line. Sorry, I'm making this whole thing on like how to save Star Wars Black Series. I don't know if you guys
No, it's done. Yeah, like I said, besides clones, people aren't buying crap. You know, barely. They got some really sick clones lately. Like they got some good figures. I showed one off. I opened one on the stream. It was great. But like I said, they have potential. It's just get back to basics. Get back to but that's what I mean. It's about the thing. It's I didn't say it was just Transformers toy line in general that fade out like that, right? Or become stagnant and don't hold it, right? It says, yeah.
Right.
The thing that has going for it is you can make a clone 100,000 times over and over and over, and people still buy it, right? Because it's just like some people want 1,000 clones. So,
well, and that's the thing. It's like a lot of goodwill has been eroded with so much of this.
Yeah,
And that's kind of a big issue. Like Rachel asked, she said, input, I'd pose the question, is listening to the fans always a good idea? Because if Marvel listened to the fans, every film would be a period piece and it'd cost 2 to 3 times the money and fail. I don't necessarily think that listening. Okay,
no.
I'll give the example. I'll give you an example of this. When they did the Thor movie was based on Michael J. Straczynski's run of Thor in the comics. And when they were writing the script, Michael J. was helped write the script, and he was like on set to help advise the story and stuff like that. When you do something like that, that's kind of showing that again, there's goodwill towards the stories that the fans love and appreciate, and the fan base that helped support these characters and make these companies all of this money. That shows there's a lot of goodwill there. And then by the time you get to like Thor Ragnarok and everything is kind of falling apart because none of these people want to listen to these people that were fans of these characters that started writing the books, they were fans in like their 10 when they're 10 to 15, and they start writing these books. They don't want to listen to them anymore because they think they know better than the people writing the books. That's where it really starts to fall apart. So I think listening to the fans and giving people the comic accurate stories of stuff that they want to see, I think is where that line should be drawn. And I think creative liberty on stuff like, when you look at Iron Man, Jarvis wasn't a old white guy butler. He became a computer. I didn't think that was a bad idea. I thought that was different and innovative, right?
So you can't listen to the fans 100%, right? Because there has to be a will for like creative expression. There has to be the movies and comics, like you can't do it one for one no matter what anyway. So there has to be a little bit of lenience on some part. But it's just when you destroy a legacy like Luke Skywalker shit, you rub it in the fans that built you there. Of course, people are gonna get pissed, right? And it's like you don't have to cater 100%. People can understand, but like you just can't derail it so far, And then, without getting into like heavy shit, political shit's inserted and this and that. And, this is supposed to be an escape. It's supposed to be fun. And when they throw it back at people's face that built it, that's what hurts,
Well, and then the dismantling of the character, like it doesn't necessarily, if they did a Wolverine, look at all those Wolverine origin movies, every time they do a trailer, when you see Hugh Jackman in the Weapon X suit, he's got the helmet, and he's just got like his brown underwear on, whatever, like that gets you hyped, right? Like, but then they kind of do like these bait and switches, right? Where it's like that one scene is fantastic, but like the rest of the movie is terrible. Right,
79 Days to Life. That's great. Yeah, I know the bait and switch, and it's heavy, and that's what kills these toy lines. And I know, the Transformer stuff. Like they keep redoing the same figure and updating it and all that. I mean, it is what it is at that point. But it's just like if you want to do that in Generations, if they had the will to experiment, then fine, keep doing it in Generations. You have the money, right? Like if you want to do the capitalist thing and put out the figure that's not 100%, and another one's coming down the line in the Generations line, go ahead. But it'd be nice if they just experimented more with another line. They did an Armada line, not Armada figures, but they just experimented like that far out, and it, like even if we said if it had to do a trial, like only made like not made to order, but you only could get it online at first, or some retailers, like just to test it out, but 6 figures or something, you don't have to do a whole line. Like it'd just be nice to see some variety for once. And if something hits, it hits, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, right? Then just go back to making Soundwave every month. But I mean, it'd be nice to see a little experimentation, right?
Yeah, and I think too, there's no. I think the problem is with in terms of a lot of that is like there's no like inner pushback from like people inside the company, right? Yeah. Ryan from the Marvel Legends team recently did a podcast, and and he said that it basically all just boils down to corporate greed. And it's like, okay, but if at that point, if the figures you are making are going to have problems, or going to be missing paint apps, or going to be missing this or that, or whatever the case is, then cancel make a line, make a wave that has 6 figures instead of 7, and put the money from that 7th figure, spread that out through the 6 other figures, right? There has to be some sort of eternal pushback, because the corporate greed is always going to run roughshod no matter what. Right? That's what corporations do. That's what capitalism is. Yeah,
and that's the sign of business. It's fine with me. Some of it's fine with me because it has to run its course. It is what it is, but it's just they could branch out, and if things do work, it'd bring in more things, and then they can make those figures for the next 30 years over, I guess. But right. It'd just be nice to see, like I said, some, they used to experiment all the time, especially when they were in their low, right? Transformers, when they had nothing else going for them, they experimented more. So,
yeah, and now all Hasbro wants to do is release the same figure. Now it's pinless, Now
I
it's,
know.
you know, or in the case of Transformers, it's the same character and it's the same engineering, and it, you know, it's just like this update because he's now an inch taller and he's the same colors from the movie, guys. Yay!
Mhm,
It's like,
mhm,
and like, so,
mhm.
um, you know, that there's, you know,
Hey, Big
that,
M.
that's a whole thing. Um, but
What?
Rachel was saying, she said, there's a contingent of people who want an entire DCU of period film pieces. So I was asking essentially, at what point do you draw the line at listening to fans? I would say that you draw the line at being loyal to the character that you are trying to represent
Mhm.
on screen.
Yeah.
Um, and when
So,
you know, I'll give a really good example here in this, the Joker movie, The Walking Phoenix, the first one, fantastic movie. And then the backlash happened for the second one. And I forget the director's name, but he was like, well, I never said it was the Joker. It's just Joker. And it was like, okay, but you then if that's the case, you basically destroyed any goodwill that you had built up after that second movie in that, like, in that explanation, right? Number one. But
mhm.
number two, why did you give us a character that was so closely, you know, related to the Joker if it wasn't the Joker or meant to be the Joker or whatever, right? So I think my point is like that first film was so loyal to that character, right? And people really got to sink their teeth in that film and really enjoy that character and everything else. And then you go into the second movie and there's this like creation idea of what the director wants, what the actors want to do with the characters, and it's just this complete, you know, out of left field kind of turn for the characters. And that's where the slap in the face comes. That there has to be that middle ground there where you listen to the fans who want to have a loyalty to that character and a representation of that character to that character, right? And then you have to have some kind of and then on the fan side, you have to understand that there's going to be some sort of creative liberty taken, but you also have to hope that those creative liberties still fall within the parameters of that characters. For instance, I'll give a great example here, Batman the animated series, right?
Mhm.
They took a lot of inspiration from 70s era horror Batman in a lot of those episodes, and a lot of fans were, you know, really excited, and they trust that creative ability now with that character. So whenever something new comes along that is attached to that animated Batman universe, fans still get excited, fans still get hyped, whether it's good, whether it's bad, doesn't matter, because that goodwill isn't eroded yet for animated series stuff. So and I think too, I think the fans are tired at this point of just bad, schlocky garbage. You know, we I think that's really what it boils down to. So I think at the end of all of this, the fans are believing that they know best on how to write these movies and everything, and they're not, and that's not probably not necessarily the case, but it's
No.
one of those things where the fans, I think, feel like, okay, you had your shot, you failed, you messed it up. Now you got to start listening to us if you want to continue this.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, they're like I said, there's so much more involved now, and it's just, yeah, it's not. There's way more involved in, especially movies wise, political drama and all this. It's not. They need to, like they said, if they want success with superhero shit, they have to bring it back to basics and take it back to now what the characters really standing for and what they really mean. And even if we're not from that time and place anymore, you have to, there's, of course, you have to adapt it to some new things, but there's a time and place for what, right? You can't
Right.
destroy the core thing that made it what it is, even if it doesn't line up with today, as much. So, and like you said, you just the bait and switch, the sideways stuff, and then this makes people lose interest in the toy lines that it affects, like especially Star Wars. It's the biggest one, and it's but the vintage stuff, as much as the toys are yellowing and kind of like if you don't have them in box, the original toys, Star Wars are a little crazy, but like people are getting back into collecting the original lines again. The original trilogy and all that. So I mean, it brings back in, and that's what sells, and that's what people want, right? And Clone Wars stuff people love because that was still a good era. So and what people are buying and showing with their money is like what people want.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what they should do. If
That's the way to listen to the fans in that kind of way. But yeah, you can't listen to fans 100% because it's just like, some things just don't adapt. And so, but you just, you have to, like you said, you have to respect the thing that made it popular. You have to respect the art of the product, like why it became popular. Like, you can change things here and there, like slightly, but you have to stay true to what made it cool, what made it good,
And the thing is like, I think a lot of fans have to understand that there are certain things that work in comic books or in books or a cartoon or whatever that don't work in movies and vice versa, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have an hour and a half to 2 hours to tell your story in a movie versus a cartoon. You have 26 episodes, 15, whatever it might be, right? And I think the other thing too is like Rachel brought up the Three Jokers story. I hate that story. If they did a movie like based on the Three Jokers story, I would ride in the streets because I think that's a terrible story. I think it's a terrible adaptation of the Joker character. My point is that if the fans start clamoring for that story to be told as a movie, I think Hollywood has a responsibility to look at that story and say no because it's a bad story, right? Like I said, there's it's a balancing act. There is a fine line to it, and I think that the fans can get in their own way because all they want is like comic accurate stories and stuff. And to some degree, I want that too, but I also don't want, the same stories that I read to be told to me again, because that's what we're getting constantly. We're getting constant rehashes. The same toys are coming out, right? The same characters are coming out. It's this constant, it's the same thing. I want something new and fresh and exciting that is still loyal to the characters that I love, And I think that's why that giant stop motion boom during COVID happened on YouTube, right? I think a lot of people weren't happy with a lot of stuff as far as what Hasbro is doing with like Transformers and what Disney was doing with Star Wars and stuff like that. So they started making their own stories because they knew what these characters would do or what they would say better than these writers would because they grew up with them. And a lot of those stories, animation aside, whether the animation is choppy or good or bad or whatever, a lot of those stories are 100 times better than any of the stuff that Hollywood comes out with. And I will say that like some of the stories might need some fine tuning, in terms of dialogue or in terms of, story in general, but a lot of it, is still better than, a lot of the stuff that Hollywood has produced. And Rachel said, well, so when can we get an R-rated Mirage Turtles based film? I thought they were, or no, did they cancel it? I thought they were doing like a Last Ronin.
Last Ronin. Yeah.
See,
that'll be tied up in production hell for like a decade when it's not even relevant anymore.
I tell you this, the He-Man movie is still it's not real. It's an AI thing. It's not real until I can go buy a movie ticket for it. And actually watch it. That thing Same thing with the Thundercats live action. But those two movies have been in production hell since like 2003. I said the same thing about Beetlejuice 2. You know, the sequel to Beetlejuice. It's not real until I watch it. You know, same thing with Ghostbusters. It's not real until I watch it.
No, I know.
All because of the production hell that those studios were, those movies were stuck in because of production hell from the studios and stuff. I will say, if we get a Transformers show based on the Skybound comics, that would be super cool. At this point, maybe we should just get some movies based on the Skybound books. So, Danny, what other lost and forgotten toy lines have you thought about during my rambles, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably like I loved Crash Dummies, you know. They never really brought that ever back. I still think it's a good line. It's hard to collect, especially if used and stuff, because all the pieces people lost, obviously.
Well, I would ask, like, who owns the rights to the Crash Test Dummies? Because wasn't that like a DOT thing, Department of Transportation?
It was. I know. I think it really was. It came from that, and then I don't know. It's just, some of those 90s lines, you know, I can't believe like that Toxic Avengers line. You couldn't get rid of those figures for like $5 like 10 years ago. Now they're like hundreds each. It's unbelievable.
Oh, dude, I remember.
You couldn't sell those at a garage sale.
Yeah, it was like out of nowhere. So much of this boom in terms of value happened during COVID because people were buying stuff because they were bored.
Yeah.
And it shot the price on so much of this stuff sky high through the roof. You know?
Mental, yeah.
And it's like it's insane to me because now I remember when Street Sharks, like the same thing, you couldn't give them away.
I know.
And now Mattel did 2 waves. I don't know if they're doing a 3rd wave, but they did like 2 waves of like modern old school Street Sharks.
Yeah, the new ones suck. Like the new ones, like just how they feel, and it's just they actually didn't do very well. I seen even in American videos they were sitting on the shelves, and it's just the difference. The originals are great, but it's so hard. Like some of them, like, you know, because of the texture they were, that all the paint wear on them. So to get them mint in good condition is pretty hard right now, depending on. And then those puppets, man, they've skyrocketed in value. They're like $500 like sealed now. The puppets, you couldn't give those puppets away at a garage sale.
Oh, dude, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I remember those they barely fit on your hand when you were a kid. Now they don't even fit as an adult. Like,
I know, and like it's just like I said, you know, and then it's.
And you know what's crazy about it is you see all this stuff popping off, like Street Sharks or, you know, Toxic Crusaders, or whatever like that. But then when you have something that hits mainstream that you would think would pop off, like they did, like Ghostbusters Afterlife, right? The toy line, the Extreme Ghostbusters toy line, just still is dirt cheap. You know?
I noticed some of it's gone up. Like Pumpkinhead was at the show. People are asking like $100 for it now, so it's a little
starting to creep up.
And that's a good line. That line, like, that's a line that people are sleeping on still. Like, that will go up in value and hold its value. It's just a matter of time. But I mean, it's a cool line. That green monster. I mean, it's a sick line.
Look, I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, okay? But Extreme Ghostbusters is the best Ghostbusters in terms of toy line, in terms of cartoon.
I like it better too. I actually liked it. I never really, besides the Ghostbuster movie, I didn't like Ghostbusters too much, but I love Extreme Ghostbusters. I had lots of the toys.
Yeah, dude, that toy line was fantastic. That cartoon, if you haven't watched the cartoon, you guys are sleeping on it. There's so much history in terms of that cartoon, in terms of animators, in terms of animation studios, in terms of voice actors, and I'm talking about where people got their start. I'm talking about where, you know, people from the real Ghostbusters, you know, 10 years later got brought on to work on that show on Extreme Ghostbusters. We're talking people that went from real Ghostbusters to the Rugrats cartoon, working for Nickelodeon, and then leaving that studio to go work on Extreme Ghostbusters. Like, there's so much history in that one cartoon. It's absurd.
I know.
So,
it's good.
yeah.
I love it.
Let's see. The company that made Extreme Ghostbusters Trendmasters was one of the best toy companies of the 90s, in my opinion, says Blunghole. I agree. Hey, Paul. What's going on? Anthony says the Men in Black animated series, people made it. That was a fantastic cartoon. Wasn't that done by the same studio who did the Godzilla cartoon as well?
I think it was. Yeah, it was. Hey, Paul, what's up, player?
The 90s, the Godzilla.
Yeah. The 90s, the cartoon shit. Yeah, it was great.
Wow.
But yeah, that Extreme Ghostbusters, that's like a thing we got to talk about on the State of Us podcast. We have to have I'll have a Extreme Ghostbusters talk.
Yeah, because busting makes us feel good, dude. You know what? That theme song is the best version of the Ghostbusters theme song. Everything about Extreme Ghostbusters is the best. About like the best thing for Ghostbusters. And since we're talking about extreme 90s cartoons, we also got to touch on Extreme G.I. Joe. We also got to touch on Extreme Dinosaurs. Okay.
Yeah.
Extreme G.I. Joe, man, fuck a real American hero. Extreme G.I. Joe is where it's at. Okay.
I'm extreme.
Extreme Dinosaurs was pretty good. That I feel like Extreme, in terms of toy line, Extreme G.I. Joe gets a lot of crap from the G.I. Joe fandom, but I think overall, if you take it out of like the G.I. Joe fandom or whatever, I think the toy line on its own is a fantastic toy line. There's a lot of like gimmicky stuff, like that's like rocket launchers and stuff like that. It's a very fun toy line. It's very much of its era, but still a very fun toy line. You got foam darts being shot out of like cannons and all kinds of stuff, right? It's a very fun toy line. Fantastic cartoon as well. I don't know what else to say about that except for this. If you are a G.I. Joe fan, explain to me why there's so much hate for Extreme G.I. Joe. Like,
some of it's weird. It's just like you said. It's just, I don't know, just ahead of its time too. Some of it.
Yeah. Blue Raccoon touched on the Jackie Chan cartoon. The showrunners made Transformers Prime. There you go. There's so much history. Like, seriously, go look up the real Ghostbusters cartoon. Look up a lot of those showrunners. And you'll see that they got their start in Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and then they Class B Studios, the ones that did like Rugrats and stuff for Nickelodeon. They went to that studio. Then they went to like Extreme Ghostbusters. They worked on Men in Black. They worked on the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon early, like 2010, 12, whatever. There's a lot, man. There is a lot in that one little era, that one little pocket of animation. There's a lot of history. But yeah, guys, just so you know, next week, this is a reminder for anybody who's tuned into the State of the Transformers Fandom podcast. Going forward, the podcast will become the State of Us podcast. Essentially, it's just going to be us talking about stuff that is about more or less like us and what we're into more so, I guess, in terms of stuff. That's a terrible transition, but the State of the Transformers Fandom podcast will be reserved for when big things happen in the world of Transformers, like Transformers has labs, stuff like that. But yeah, so next week will be the first episode of the State of Us. And what are we talking about the State of Us podcast? And what are we talking about next week?
Yeah, no, we'll think of that. There'll be lots. We'll probably just do like more of an intro version anyways, just to relax. And like I said, maybe we'll have a topic or a couple things, a little bit of a theme, and then we can get into yeah, like I said, get into maybe show, like if we see anything cool, like send it to me. We can talk about it, or stuff we're interested in, a couple figures, something like that. That's not Transformers that you were looking forward to, because you always like your Mafex or any of that. You could bring your Mafex or whatever you can bring up or whatever. We'll just deep dive. We'll just try to, keep it fresh. But I appreciate everyone that watched all these. Like I have the playlist up. Like I said, we'll be doing stuff like HasLab. If there's any big controversial stuff happening in the Transformers fandom that's relevant that we want to talk about, we'll bring that back. And it's not done. It's just just need to expand. We're just gonna get pigeonholed into kind of talking about this again and that again, and we're obviously today too, we're a bit derailed as well. So it just opens it up. We can talk about more, right? But I appreciate everyone being here and supporting this podcast. It really got me out of a funk and really got input, doing stuff again too. And it's like, I appreciate everyone that showed up and left a comment and has been in chat. And I thank you, Input, for being here. Like I said, it's not over, but just trying to expand and try something new. I'm better when things, it's not to get stagnant. We need to freshen things up. We need to be more lively, right?
Yeah, and
holiday wish list would be great too. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, holiday wish list would be cool. And then, and I want to be transparent. I guess we can touch on this next week too. But like, I how many sound waves, how many Optimus Primes, how many whatever, can we discuss or talk about or whatever before it just kind of gets dull and boring or whatever, right? Like so.
And I was gonna say too, like for the new show too, like if the Transformers one will keep the same, but this one will be a bit more open. If someone wants to get in to drop something, like tell their angle, or wants to be a guest for a full show or something, we can do that in. We can bring someone for like a moment or whatever. Like it's more options to that, because the branding will be different, right? And it's more of a relaxed, chill vibe, right?
Yeah, it's definitely like a more back and forth kind of conversation, and yeah, like you're saying, like more open towards having people stop by, guests, however you want to phrase that.
If people just want to click in for a moment and say something, we can do that. We can bring multiple people in for that. We're gonna have someone like start the whole show with us. It just opens it up more. We make it fresher, funner.
And I want to say this too: we're not gonna let it get off the rails. We're not gonna let, like, if there's 10 people.
No, none of that. Like I'm max 1-2 people at max. Yeah,
we're not doing that.
No, no.
But yeah,
but if multiple people want to come in a show, we could have 5 people on, but we'll just bring one person in at a time. If it's like a quick, like, give your opinion on this type of thing, right? Someone wants to give in, okay, out next, right? And then if we're going to do something like the full show of someone, that'd be cool. It just depends what it is. We'll line it up, but it just opens up more options.
Yeah. So there you go. The State of Us podcast starts next week. And much like the Undertaker's podcast, this one is 6 feet under.
That's awesome.
And we'll see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Heck yeah. Just different branding.
4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Basically just different branding. It's the same old input. It's the same old Danny Double D. And if you ain't down with that, we got 2 words for you.
Boo, yeah. We'll see you next time, people. Thanks as always, and yeah, have a good one.
Thank you for joining us. It has been a pleasure. However, we must now conclude the program. We appreciate your viewership and apologize should we have inadvertently disrupted your evening. Please do not take any offense. We look forward to presenting another engaging topic next week, and we extend our gratitude for your continued support.